Right, now to our backstory segment, and homes are selling at auction like hotcakes, and much to real estate experts' surprise. Over the weekend, the nation experienced the biggest auction clearance rate of the year, with 2020 looking good for home buyers. I asked Sky News senior real estate editor Liz Tilley how the market is shaping up for the year ahead.
It's good, Gleeso. We had more than 3,000 auctions across the capital cities this week, so that's the biggest auction week this whole year, which is a really good sign for what 2020 might have in store. The auction clearance rate was 79%, so that's pretty good as well, and that's up on last week's, which was 68.5%. So things are going well. There's quite a lot of properties going to market, lots of stock out there. So buyers are getting a little bit of FOMO, I think. A lot of the agents are reporting they've got that fear of missing out again, which we saw a couple of years ago. They're wanting to get back in and buy before prices go up again, because of course we saw
those figures.
Yeah,
5%
those figures,
up
huge.
in, 7 or 8% in Sydney and Melbourne.
Yeah, so prices are going back up again. So that's why we're starting to see a little bit of a rush, but that's good. Good news for the property market generally. And this weekend alone, Ray White are holding 700 auctions across all the capital cities, so that's huge.
700.
And usually from about this time it really starts to slow down. So yeah, it's good to see those numbers coming through.
Interest rates are on hold this month, but we're talking possibly another interest rate reduction in February, Liz.
Yeah, everyone's sort of saying now February will be down to 0.5%, so that'll be interesting to see. Probably most likely. You know, we had been hearing some economists saying that it could happen before the end of this year, but definitely now it's looking like next year. So good news for investors, and that comes as a new survey. Find has put out this survey on the best cities in Australia to invest in, and Brisbane's topped the list. So obviously we've been talking about Brisbane for a while. Good value. It still provides good value. You look at Sydney and Melbourne, they're still too expensive, even when prices dropped or corrected that little bit, still too expensive. Brisbane still has that affordability and the lifestyle. We're seeing interstate migration increasing, infrastructure, a lot of new projects coming online, you know, Cross River Rail. So apparently that's going to be good. Melbourne's also up there too, but you're looking at a higher price tag for buyers. So yeah, we might see a little bit of a festive rush from New South Wales buyers coming up here over this Christmas season.
And are we talking houses, units, or both?
Houses mostly, because they are able to get more bang for their buck here. You get a bigger backyard, bigger slice of land for a lot cheaper than you'd get in Sydney. But units are coming back into the fore as well. So that whole oversupply concern that we saw last year, it didn't really eventuate. We're now seeing it go back the other way. We've got very few projects coming online in the next year, so units are going to be back in demand. We're seeing rents rising, so that's good news for investors. So those owner-occupier targeted units are going to do well. So your 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, not that cheap investor cookie cutter stock. So they're the ones to look for, but definitely still a good time to buy a unit now again.
And a couple of big sales to round off the year. One in Brisbane's smallest suburb. Tell us about that, Liz.
Did you know what Brisbane's smallest suburb was?
I have no idea.
I didn't know either until I looked it up. Kalinga. So it's a really...
Kalinga?
Yeah, it's like tucked away there between...
Right near Wooloowin and Clayfield.
Wooloowin, Clayfield. So surrounded by beautiful suburbs.
Oh, it's a great area, Kalinga.
Yeah, it's a bit of a secret one. And this one, you wouldn't even know it existed. It's 3,300 square metres. This huge estate, beautiful renovated home, championship tennis court, owned by mining executive Brad Gordon.
Yep.
And so that went to auction at the weekend. One of the biggest auction results in Brisbane all year, $5.15 million.
In a little suburb like Kalinga?
Yes. So that's really big and really good news. And it tops off a year where we also saw the Brisbane auction record broken this year, $8.4 million for a riverfront home in McConnell Street, Bulimba, in October. So that was a huge result. So for a city where we haven't seen much auction activity, it's starting to heat up again.
That's interesting
now.
You mentioned Kalinga and that Wooloowin area, which is sort of sleepers. They haven't got the reputation, for example, of the Ascots or the Hamiltons. No. But right near Kalinga Park, it's a terrific area. So you can see why the prices in Wooloowin and Kalinga are going.
And the kind of people that were at the auction were not your. They were very unassuming. So we're talking young entrepreneurs who rocked up on a bicycle.
Wow. You
know, just dressed casually. They're not wanting to be showy. They're wanting that privacy tucked away in a little suburb. It's not about sort of wanting that big house in Ascot. So that's an interesting sign of the times, I think, too.